Welcome back, my students, to a brand new episode of Comic Class. And in today's lesson, guys, we look at the Amazing Spider-Man issue 2. And yeah, in today's issue, guys, we have two stories to talk about, and they involve the Vulture and the Tinkerer. So yeah, this should be really fun. So without further ado, let's jump right into today's story. Let's go. So the story pretty much starts off with the Vulture in action. We get to see him robbing someone, and we also get to see Peter Parker overhearing his classmates talk about how the Daily Bugle, a newspaper publisher, basically is gonna, hire people, or at least pay people for good pictures of the Vulture. So Peter Parker basically has the idea to turn into Spider-Man to take pictures of the criminal, the Vulture, basically to pay his aunt's bills. And yeah, so he basically starts to get ready to go take these pictures, and the Vulture is, contemplating how he's gonna eventually have to deal with Spider-Man, because Spider-Man is a thing now. Now the Vulture basically is out, doing his thing, gonna go rob people, when he gets in a battle with Spider-Man, and he's able to easily defeat Spider-Man and puts him into this type of water container. And this water container is like super heavy, so Spider-Man is in this, a giant amount of water, and he uses his super strength, his spider-like strength, to kind of like break open the lid on the top, and he's able to escape with his life. So Peter basically realizes that he needs to step up his game, that, him not having enough web fluid and stuff like that is going to be a no-go in the future. And that now that he's fighting people like the Vulture and, the Chameleon, people that have abilities like him, he's gonna have to up his game. So he starts building a utility belt that holds more of his web fluid canisters. And yeah, it just shows that he's learning, he's adapting with the opponents that he's having to face, which is really cool to see. And it is one of the reasons why Spider-Man is such an interesting character. Now Peter basically takes the pictures that he was able to take of the Vulture to, J. Jonah Jameson, and he pays him, and it looks like things are going good for Peter Parker, which is awesome. Now Peter basically eventually becomes Spider-Man again, gets in suit, and he takes on the Vulture a second time, but this time he has a plan. So him and the Vulture kind of engage in a flight battle, with the Vulture thinking he has the advantage because he can fly. The Spider-Man basically made a device that made his, attachments that he uses to fly malfunction. So he's basically falling to his death with Spider-Man as well, but Spider-Man uses his webbing to basically save his life, while the Vulture is able to, kind of get control of his flight suit, but is still crashing down into one of the buildings, and the police capture him and put him in jail. And at the end of the, story, we get to see that Spider-Man is pretty happy that his anti-magnetic inverter worked, which enabled him to get the win on the Vulture. And he gets paid from J. Jonah Jameson for more pictures of the Vulture and his capture. And because of this, Peter was able to pay the rent for a whole year for his Aunt May. And looks like things are going up for him. And this is the start of Peter, using a job as a photographer to make money while he's Spider-Man, which is a really cool thing that they came up with, to have Spider-Man able to have a normal job in a way while saving people in New York. And it ends with the Vulture basically saying that he will get revenge on Spider-Man, and that he's also going to develop better flight suits to take on Spider-Man, and that next time it will be his turn to gloat. And yeah, that was the first story with the Vulture. Now we jump into the second story, which has to do with the terrible Tinkerer. Now, basically, Peter is talking to the science lab professors, and he gets offered an opportunity to study under a very renowned professor, so he takes the opportunity to go learn from this dude. And while he's there, the guy basically tells him that he needs to go check something, or go check with his boss or something like that. And it turns out that there's a ton of these aliens working underneath in like the basement area, and Spider-Man basically has a spider sense and senses that something's wrong, so he dresses into his Spider-Man outfit and heads down to check out what exactly is happening with the professor. And eventually he comes down to the basement, and the aliens actually spot Spider-Man and they try to attack him. and Spider-Man actually has to, climb up walls, uses web shooters, uses super strength to fight against these aliens. And it's a really cool fight scene that we get to see between these characters. Eventually, the Tinkerer lands a hit on Spider-Man and puts him into this type of capsule, and in this capsule they're basically going to drain all the air from it, basically suffocating Spider-Man, and suffocating him to death, which is pretty brutal. But Spider-Man uses some of the air holes that they had inside of the capsule to shoot his webbing through, and is able to hit the control panel that gets the capsule to open. And with this, Spider-Man basically engages in combat again, knocking one of the aliens into the control panel, destroying it. And the Tinkerer basically tells them not to leave him, and Spider-Man grabs the Tinkerer, basically telling him that there's no way he's going to let him get away, because he's a traitor to the human race, because he was going to sell him out to the aliens, basically having the aliens take over Earth, which we know wouldn't happen. Just the Avengers or something like that, other superheroes in this world would definitely stop the aliens. Spider-Man isn't the be-all, but this is his story, so we have to believe it being that big of a threat. And yeah, so the Tinkerer basically tells Spider-Man to get his hands off him, that nobody touches the Tinkerer, and it's implied that the Tinkerer dies, I believe. So Spider-Man leaves with his life, basically barely escaping, suffocating on, the gas, the smoke. And yeah, at the end we get to see that the aliens go up into their spaceship and leave Earth, saying that there's no way they'll ever come back again because they're already found out, and they definitely will be prepared for them in the future, showing that they really have no chance against these superpowered people, which is really cool to see. Now we also get to see, the professor basically coming back, one of the professors talking to, Peter Parker, telling him how his, studying went under that professor. And it's revealed that, in the confusion of the smoke and that engagement that he had with that other professor, that the guy actually dropped a mask showing that he actually wasn't who he said he was. So I'm not sure if it's ever going to get revealed on who this guy actually is in a future issue. Pretty sure it will, but we'll cover that whenever, it gets revealed in the future. And that's how the issue ends, basically him saying that he's not sure how everything went, but he did have a good time, basically letting the guy not suspect anything, and while at the same time holding this mask that this dude was using to try to fool everyone. So I wonder who that guy is that was behind this mask, and hopefully we see that in a future issue. And yeah, that was the Amazing Spider-Man issue 2. It was a pretty good issue. I enjoyed both stories, which really surprised me. I thought maybe the second story would be pretty fillerish and not really feel relevant to anything in Spider-Man's world or plot. But I actually enjoyed the Tinkerer as a villain, and I thought the whole alien subplot was pretty interesting. And the Vulture story was just great. I really enjoyed that a lot. It was a really good introduction to the Vulture character. Overall, good introductions to both these characters, and I'm glad I read this, and I definitely do recommend you go check it out. But that's gonna be all, guys. This was just a real quick video talking about, the Amazing Spider-Man issue 2. Tune in next time as we look at the Amazing Spider-Man issue 3. And yeah, I'm covering the entire Ditko Stan Lee run, which covers issues 1, well, Amazing Fantasy number 15 to Spider-Man's issues 1 through 38. So yeah, tune in for, I believe it will be daily videos covering this run. But until next video, guys, God bless you. Until the next lesson, keep on reading those comments.